I almost wore a Hawaiian shirt today. But I think you've worn. You kind of like. I think I remember you wearing
Oh
Hawaiian
yeah,
shirts quite a bit. Yeah, huh?
Yeah, my dad, I think he got me some, and for some reason, I just got in the habit of wearing them. Maybe it's the colors or,
But it also makes you kind of like comfortable, right? It's like, hey, it's the
yeah.
weekend. I just want to take it easy, right? It's not work.
welcome everybody to the show. Today we have a return guest, Kenny Completo. How are you doing, Kenny?
I'm doing well, thank you. Got a lot of rest this weekend, which is good.
It's important to get our rest to get ready for the week, isn't it?
It is. I
And
decided to teach 4 classes in Saturday school for intervention. So Sunday is a welcome day for me.
How many hours do you do a Saturday, Kenny?
It's just about a 4.5 hour time frame from 8
Wow.
to 12:30, and kids who need the support that aren't doing too well in their classes. So um, works out, and I get to do it in the library, which is really
Oh,
cool.
you're home. That's good.
That's right.
yes, Kenny Completo is the librarian, head librarian at Elizabeth Learning Center in Cudahy, California. And as I mentioned before, you were on our show last season, and this particular episode was born out of that interview or that session that
Mm-hmm.
we had when we asked you about books, and you mentioned
Yes,
several, one of which we've all read, and
that's
I
wonderful.
believe we all love. And I've always wanted, it's interesting because I've always wanted to somehow bring in Tuesdays with Morrie. But Tuesdays with Morrie, for those of you who don't know, is about Morrie Schwartz, the beloved professor at Brandeis University in Boston. There's just not enough universities in Boston, I guess. They needed one more. And his pupil, Mitch Albom, who was more known as a sports columnist for the Detroit Free Press. And Mitch Albom, who wrote the book, discovers one day from watching the old Nightline with Ted Koppel show that his old professor, of whom he really loved, but just kind of lost touch over the years, was stricken with ALS, the very cruel disease. And Mitch Albom decides to visit him. And instead of finding a bitter, frustrated man who, it's really a death sentence, and those of you who know Lou Gehrig's disease, it's a very painful way to go. Your cognitive abilities remain, but the rest of your body wastes away. He found not a bitter old man, but what did he find, Kenny? And you could also just speak to the power in the book in general. What say you?
Well, it was interesting because I was just flipping through the pages again, and I found the spot where he actually had a phone call with him, and the next chapter was his first visit on Tuesday. And what did he find? He found exactly what you described, and then he found more. I think, much to his surprise, and I thought what was really interesting is that he first met who he called the coach um, when he was in his teenage years, and he was a young man, and the professor was already aged, and so when he met him again, um, he met him in different circumstances at this time. He came to know him as Morrie, as a person, and he really sat beside him, um, listening to him, teaching him about life and death and what was expected. And what he did was that I think he gave him more than just 1 or 2 visits. He gave him a lifetime change that helped him understand the meaning of life and what he should pursue. And I want to open up with this quote because I just found this, and I think this was the beginning of Mitch Albom's change. when Professor Morrie said, so many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they're chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. And Mitch said, I knew he was right. And then began his journey.
Kenny, this is weird. That was the exact same first quote I was going to share.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
This is gonna be more weird.
Right.
I have a quote too, but it wasn't that one.
And
Sorry,
so
Hey, you
we'll
know,
let Jake,
great minds, right?
we'll let Jake get his
Later on.
comments. But I do want to mention that the power of that is it's truly Morrie saying, here's the meaning of life. Don't you hear so many people ask that question? What's the meaning of life? I love the confidence in this man in the end of his life saying, here it is. I found it. And when you read it and reread it, you can't argue with his points, right? And as we work with youth, you know, we've had several podcasts on mental health. I want to tell students or even adults who struggle with depression and anxiety, before you take that pill, and I'm not a doctor, I know some people need that, I'm not commenting, or maybe in addition to that, whatever you're doing, have you tried this? Have you served your community? Do you have loved ones? Have you focused? You know, it might be the remedy they've been looking for, especially if they've never tried it.
That's
Why
right.
not? Really
it's kind of
powerful.
Christ-like too, right? I mean, to give to yourself, to love others. I mean, it's like, wow, it's things that I could hear Christ saying, correct? I mean,
That's
it's not contrary to the scriptures. Is that the book you have there, Ruben?
Yes. Yes. And by the way, it's not just devote yourself to loving others, as Kenny mentioned, and your community around you, but to devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose. You can't forget that third part, you know. Being creative, I think, is part of, and like you, Jake, you're mentioning the creator. He created. And why aren't we creating if we aren't doing that? What are you interested in? What's your passion? And why aren't you devoting yourself to it? Let's get started on doing that. So I really like that.
Yeah, can I
You know,
share
one of the
something?
things that I discovered working in the library, well, there's a couple of things I just want to mention briefly. One of the first times we did a Scholastic book fair, we were sent a donation box, and that was the idea was that students would donate their loose change. You know, my experience has been it's a poor community, and you know, people don't have. Sometimes the kids don't even have enough money to buy a book, and so I felt hesitant at first about putting that box out there. But what I did find out was that when I put it out there, kids who were helping me at the front desk would say, would you like to donate so others can buy a book? And it just blew me away because students were so generous with what they had, perhaps what little they had. They were so eager to give so that others can purchase a book. And I even had a student come up to me at the book fair was over, and he said, oh, here, I want to donate these dollars I have, the actual dollar bills. And I said, wow, you know, the book fair is over, but why don't you come back when we're up and running again, and you can give then. But I did find out that so many students love to give, and if we give them that opportunity to share, to give what little they may have, or perhaps they have a lot that they can give, they enjoy the benefit as well, because we always tell them that this donation is going towards others who can't afford it, and they get to ring a bell, you know, at the end, and I think that's pretty cool. You know, the other thing I wanted to mention was that I give students the opportunity, seniors, to create a display in the library, and I tell them, you know, this display is going to communicate to younger children, and two times we've done this. The first group created a display called Warm Air Matters, and their science teacher helped them out, Miss Magat. She's been there quite a while, and she helped them out again with water conservation. And students come by and they're just amazed at this display. And so we get to share this with them. They take a picture with one of the administrators and their teacher, and you should see the smiles on their faces because they gave to their community. They gave something of meaning to young children, and they're so excited about it. So yeah, I really believe that creating experiences so others can give is very important. We see it all the time everywhere. And that's a big theme in this book, because they're both giving to each other.
Both learning
the
from each
coach,
other. Yeah.
professor, right? And both Mitch and Mitch as well. So they're all giving to each other throughout the book. So you're seeing this. So great story.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Ruben.
Jake.
No, I was gonna share that. There's so many things in this book. Each chapter, as you guys know, is there. It's on a Tuesday because he met him on Tuesdays, right? For example, feeling sorry for yourself, the world, family, big topics, right? Emotions, fear of aging. He talked about money, love, marriage, and so one of the first ones was feeling sorry for yourself, and he was honest. I like that he said, "I cry sometimes. I cry, and I feel I have that little time in the morning, and to feel sorry for yourself." Then he goes, "But then I put it away, compartmentalize it, right, and then I go with my life, and I show love to others, and sharing a lot of things that you shared, Kenny." And I go, "Wow!" At least he didn't say, "Hey, I'm per A. This ALS." It's nothing. It's a breeze. It's a walk in the park. No, he suffered, and I even said one time, you know what? There's one thing I fear is the day I can't wipe myself after the restroom, right?
That's right.
And that was
That's right.
heavy, and you know, I don't think any of us have ever gone through that kind of suffering or pain. Ruben and I, our father passed away a couple of years ago, and he, as he was getting ill, you realize, wow, this is somebody who really needs you. And I always felt like my dad was trying to teach us, even at the end, how to take care of somebody who's ill, And I think Morrie was doing that as well. Like Mitch, it's not always pleasant, and it doesn't always smell great, isn't it? It's always perfect, but this is going to make you a human being that loves and has compassion for others. And I think Mitch really got a lot out of that, right? I mean, I think that was one of the beautiful parts.
I think he kind of demystified that experience in a way, because it horrifies us, perhaps. The idea, if we were ever in that position. But I think the word he used in that section was, "I'm trying to learn to enjoy it." And it was very odd to Mitch and to the reader, probably. But what are you going to do? What else can you do? Try to enjoy it. I just feel like you're a baby and you're being taken care of, because he's trying to reframe his mind so that he wouldn't feel more sorry for himself. So he wouldn't be devastated because he only has a little time of life left. And what a interesting section that was, indeed.
I think it was really interesting to get in the mind of a sociologist, especially being a professor who knew how to articulate issues in life. And probably as sociologists, they think a little deeper than probably the average person, because they have a pretty broad scope of what life and culture and meaning is. And they have a lot of time to think about it, probably through that major. As opposed to, let's say, someone who's going more on the technical end, they're thinking how to get from point A to point B, so they can finish their course. But as a sociologist, it's really interesting to see that he had some pretty good handles on what life was all about, and what purpose in life was all about, and what true meaning is, I think, in living life. So that was a real interesting window to look out of into the life of him, and to see that he took it to the very, very end. As I told Jacob, I had to pick up the book again because I think I got to about chapter 10, and it was getting closer and closer to the end, and I was anticipating, wow, when's this going to end? When's he going to pass on? so I actually had to put it down, and then I didn't pick it up again until we had this conversation about doing this podcast, and I'm glad you did ask me to come on board with this, because it really drove me to finish the book, and I'm so glad I did, because I learned so much
Oh,
the,
good.
the second part of this reading.
Can I ask you something though, Kenny? Because I look at you as somebody who's wise, and even what you did with those kids regarding, giving them opportunities to give, at your
Mhm.
school. Do you feel like you're at this stage? And I feel like, I share this because I'm 55 and I'm towards the end of my career. Do you find yourself mentoring or looking for opportunities to talk to younger teachers or people in the teaching profession or in even education? Do you look for those opportunities? Just even a little sharing, a little a few words of encouragement or anything like that. Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah, I do. Since I've been at Elizabeth, this is my 15th year there, and we came under pretty harsh circumstances because people were getting laid off, and my position at the district was cut, and as well as a lot of others that I shared that office with. But it was a great move to go down there, and one of my colleagues said, you really got to go to the school. I actually wanted to go to Lincoln Heights because it was closer to home, and I wanted a high school. But she said, no, you got to go to this school. It's very unique, and I've been there ever since. And so during that time, I think I counted over 50 teacher librarians who came through to do their field work with me from San Jose State University and Long Beach, and maybe there was another school. I can't quite remember what that was, but anyway, during those times, I thought, well, what am I going to teach them? They probably know more than me at this point because they're fresh in the program, and they probably can dance circles around me. And I did find that out, that a lot of them just really were doing things that I never did, back in 1998 when I started. But in the end, I remember talking to a group of teacher librarians, um, and I said, with perhaps the help that they get, because we always don't get help. Some librarians get a library aide, some don't. But I just said, have heart. Don't make them do things that that aren't unnecessary, and be wise with them, because their support. And I have this wonderful library aide I've had for years now, and we work as a team. I don't consider her a library aide. We're team members. We have different roles, but we both get the job done. And I see that with her. So it's important that that's giving somebody else the opportunity to do what they can do, and perhaps they can even do it better than you. So that's a perspective I think I've learned in life, that everybody has something to contribute. You've heard that phrase, everybody has a story, and that's true. And everybody has something to contribute. We just need to find that sweet spot in their life where they can contribute as well.
Very good. I want to ask you if there's anything else about the book, any particular section that moved you or influenced you in some way. But I do want to mention this page 42.
Mhm.
He tells Morrie tells Mitch, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. And you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. And I really was impacted by this guy still, as the kids say, spitting facts, because if there's one thing that can lead you to anxiety perhaps or depression, is the lies of the culture and buying into it. But I love that Morrie is giving that lesson. Is there what do you think of that? Or if that particular part didn't move you, is there something else about it or about the book that you want to talk about?
I really appreciate those words from Morrie, about the culture, and how it somehow drives you to think in certain ways. And we see it all the time, right? You've got to you've got to buy this, you've got to look this way, you've got to have these resources, specifically money, to do the things you want to do. And, you have to have the position, you have to have the power, you're always reaching for something that will better your life. And yeah, you see that just all over the place. And I think he was very well attuned to the culture that we live in. And that was not his, perspective in life. What I really found interesting was that, he loved music. I love music too. And I appreciate all kinds of music. I don't have any particular kind of music that I just love and enjoy. I can enjoy lots of different kind of genres. And he seemed to as well. And whether it was lyrics, right? Or, whether it was rock and roll, he found a way to express his love for that in dance. And, he just went for it, right? Sounds like he never had a dance lesson in his life, but he found a way to just let himself go and not let others think about his expression and who he is. But he just was able to live that and almost have a sense of freedom from the drives of our culture, that seem to kind of corner us, that we have to do this to be happy. We have to have this to be happy. And I think what he said in those quotes about culture and perspective and life is that you really don't have to have that, and you miss the meaning of life if you pursue things that are meaningless.
Very good. Yeah, Ruben, is it possible I could share this one of these last quotes from the book? Is it actually comes from the conclusion. He says, Mitch Albom says this: have you ever really had a teacher that saw you as a raw but precious thing, a jewel with wisdom, could be polished to a proud shine? If you're lucky enough to find your way to such teachers, you will always find your way back. Sometimes it's only in your head, and sometimes it's alongside their beds. And I share that because I was thinking, as a teacher, I want to be that person, right, Kenny? I want to be that person who
That's right.
Is there for those kids, but also see the beauty that's in them, that the intellect, what they could provide and what they could give. And I see that you even sharing about your aide there and the students. I just feel like you're that one. You're a Morrie, and I think it's so awesome to have you come on and even share this from this book, because it seems pretty perfect to me.
Think about that description of Morrie. And, throughout the book, he's so positive and loving and giving, and he loves his students. Mitch looks up to him, but you wouldn't have known his background. You would be surprised, having known his background. There's a small section in the book in which describes the death of his mother at a very young age, and then him being left with a father who's pretty hard. And he was born in Europe, in Russia, I believe, his father, and he still has that European sensibility that, it's hard. It's just, Russian winters. I don't know what it is, but you really sense that dark period in his life, his young childhood, but yet he manages to be so optimistic and kind. They're really, for those of people who might say, hey, your background is everything, you could read somebody like Morrie's life and say, no, you can make a decision to be hopeful. So there's something to that. Any last words about Tuesdays with Morrie? Any last things you guys would like to say?
On the front cover of the book, it has a new afterword by the author 25 years later. The way I found out about this book, my wife was watching, she recorded, I think it was Good Morning America, maybe it was a Sunday morning program. And they interviewed Mitch Albom. And, I've really never heard of him before. But when they described what this book was, and what he did, I told my wife, I said, please get me that book. And I think she got it for me for either, I think it was, maybe it was for Father's Day. I think she just I said, that's all I want. I just want that book. Just get the book for me. And then when I picked it up and started reading it, I couldn't put it down. I think we all have these experiences in life. This is well documented about a young man and an older man, and a healthy man and a dying man. And these two come together and spend their time together talking about life, and eventually his own demise. And we all had these experiences, right? I mean, I think back to a neighbor of mine who was handicapped, deaf, and lived in a single room next door to us. And I used to put out the trash for him. I used to run errands for him when I was a kid. And then my brother and I saw him, in his last days in the hospital, and we know he was probably in a coma at the time. And we had this relationship with him, and I'm sure we all have a relationship with someone that we developed a meaningful relationship with, either it's friendship or a relative, and seen them in their last days. And so it's very relatable. If someone reads this, even a young person, I think they'll find some way to relate this experience perhaps to their own. So I'm really going to try to find a way to promote this in our library. I actually found the book in our library, and it had zero circulation on it. And I thought, oh, how sad, it was hidden away in the sociology section of the library, but it was there, and I still have it. And I want to know how I can best promote this so kids can understand this. I think it would help kids to understand what giving is, and my encouragement to others would be, and this is what this book taught me, was that whether you're young or old or wherever you are in life, find somebody to give to. And whether it's somebody who's ill and needs a helping hand, whether it's somebody who, maybe doesn't have the funding to do a project that they need to do. Perhaps they need a friend just to be a friend, because, especially in the last 3 years, you probably talked to someone who had suicidal ideation, or perhaps they were lonely, and perhaps they didn't have a friend, and they opened up to you and you can talk to them. Perhaps there's somebody in your life that knows someone who has special needs, someone that they can't do something that you can do, and maybe you can do it for them. There's got to be somebody out there to do that, that you can do that with. And I just would really encourage anybody listening to this to really think about their own life. Read the book. You'll see a living example with Mitch Albom, what he did and how it changed his life. And he became one of the biggest philanthropists in this world, right? Sure, he made millions, and it sounds like he gives millions away.
He does.
It is a powerful part of the book, Kenny, when I like your takeaway of what can I do to serve? Who can I look out? Even I like the idea of special needs, because you don't have to have money, right? Because I know a lot of high school students, you're mentioning the dollars that they were giving to support the library and other students, but the idea of spending your time with somebody, looking out for those special needs students, just saying, hi, how was your day? It is a very good takeaway. And there was a moment in the book where Mitch went and touched, he hugged him, I think, and he could feel, he got excited. He could feel the touch of a human, hand, and it was really impactful. I remember Mitch Albom, by the way, in high school. I used to read the Sporting News, and he had columns from the Detroit section, and I would read him in high school. So he was kind of known as a sports writer. So to see him go and because let's be honest, a lot of people don't want to be around hospitals and sick people.
That's right.
Right. And I used to say this, and now I caught myself, and I don't say this anymore. I hate hospitals. And now I don't like that. I don't like when people say it and I don't say it, because sometimes we need to go to the hospital and we need to visit people. So whether we hate it or not. So anyway, I really like that takeaway. What about you, Jacob?
No, I'm so encouraged. I was encouraged by the book. I'm actually encouraged by this conversation. This is why I think we do this podcast, Kenny, is that we learn from each other and get inspired, and even with this, having compassion for others, because I think Mitch and Morrie would say, wow, that's what we wanted to get out of that book, for people to go out and serve others and to love others, to visit people in the hospital, to work with special needs, to love on them, and I think they would be happy with this conversation. And I just want to thank you for being on here with us. I really do appreciate it.
I just want to mention this, and before we close, that we have a friend that we haven't seen in years, and she stopped by and invited us to it's called the Church of the Nazarene. It's in Pasadena. I think PASNAZ for short. And this last Friday night, they had a talent show of their special needs members. And this was the first time they put it on. And it was from 7:30 to 9:00. And they had artwork that they were selling or giving away and asking for a donation. And I picked one up, and I said, I'm gonna hang this on my refrigerator. And the lady who explained this to me, she said that, oh, they'll be just so happy that somebody took their artwork. But when I saw that ministry that they were doing, and there was quite a number of kids there, and not just young kids, there were middle-aged kids, older kids. They played the piano, they sang, they video recorded themselves. They read poetry, they read scripture, they read Bibles from verses from the Bible. And I thought, wow, this is an amazing ministry they have going on here. And I know God loves each and every one of them. And they invited people to come like once a month to a Saturday event just to hang out with them. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I'm thinking, maybe that's something I would probably want to do. And so it was something that I thought, I'm teaching Saturday school. I don't want to go anywhere Friday night, but my wife convinced me to go. And I thought that was one of the best decisions I ever made. So
that's great.
Different ways you can give away, and you can give of yourself. Be a friend to somebody. They're out there. People are out there who perhaps can use a helping hand.
Very good final word, Kenny. We both appreciate you coming on once again. And
thank you.
And I think we can all say, read Tuesdays with Morrie.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay. All right, guys. Good seeing you. Okay. Take care.